Okay, well, let me go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Dave, and I am one of the owners and operators of Homeschool Tracker, along with my wife Amy, who you may know from our support emails or from our getting started videos. We are here to support you guys, our customers, and we just want to say thank you so much for joining us here tonight. I know there's a lot of other things you could be doing on a Tuesday night before the holidays, so we really appreciate you taking the time to jump on the webinar to learn a little bit more about Homeschool Tracker and how you can use it to be more effective in your homeschool. So, just a little bit more background. Our mission really at Homeschool Tracker is to not only create the tools and the resources for you to be more successful in your homeschool, but then to also provide you with the support and the training to use those tools effectively. And so that's what training sessions and webinars like this are all about. They're really about just empowering you, our customers, and getting you familiar with the tools so that you can go out day to day and use them in your homeschool in the best way that works for you. So tonight we are scheduled to go for a little bit over an hour. Typically, the demonstration portion takes about an hour, and then we have plenty of time afterwards to answer any questions you may have. You can submit the questions as we go, but we will set aside some time at the end to answer any and all questions you may have. Additionally, we are recording this, and so after the recording is ready, I will go ahead and send out an email to everybody that registered with a link to that recording so that you can reference it or catch up on parts that you may have missed. So let's go ahead and get started here. I'm just going to walk through a little bit about the agenda for tonight. So we're going to talk a little about where to find help within Homeschool Tracker, because as you may have noticed, getting familiar with it, that it is a very feature-rich program, meaning there are a lot of different options. And so I wanted to show you the best places to find help if you're ever stuck or need to learn a little bit more about the thing that you're looking at that moment. We'll go over the interface of Homeschool Tracker, walk through the different areas of the program. We'll talk about a little bit about the difference between subjects and courses within Homeschool Tracker and why that's important to think about that distinction. Then we'll dive into assignments, which are really the heart of all your record keeping in Homeschool Tracker. We'll also discuss lesson plans, which are a really popular feature. And we'll talk a little bit about reports, specifically the daily task list. And we'll also talk about workflows. And by that, I mean basically the different ways that you can use all of these different features and tools on a day to day basis. And I'll probably mention a few different workflows as we go, but we'll spend a little bit of time there to kind of recap on a few popular workflows. And then, as I mentioned, we'll take some time to answer any questions you may have. So let's first talk about where to find help. So one great place is right here on this Getting Started webinar. So again, thank you that you've joined us. I also want to just direct you to our help site, which is just help.homeschooltracker.com. And here, these 11 links here at the top, this is our Getting Started video guide. And each one of these parts is just a few minutes, and altogether, you can watch the whole thing in about 30 minutes. And it really kind of walks you through a lot of the basic features in Homeschool Tracker. And the nice thing is you can kind of jump to the area that you're interested in the most. So that's a great place to find help, especially if you're just getting started. Additionally, the help documentation itself. So this entire site, help.homeschooltracker.com, has a ton of information here, and it's kind of more of a reference guide rather than a user manual. So one trick that I like to show folks is that when you're in Homeschool Tracker, you can click on this help link up here at the top at any time, and it'll take you to the corresponding help page for that screen. So for example, if I'm in the agenda calendar view, I'll just jump over there real quick. And I had some questions about this page or some of the features on here. I could just click on help, and it'll take me straight to the agenda calendar view help page. And here is anything and everything I've ever always wanted to know about the agenda calendar page, along with links to other areas that might be mentioned or may be relevant for that page. Additionally, you can search the help site here. So for example, I'll just search for days off, and it'll just take me straight to the corresponding page for adding days off in Homeschool Tracker. So that's a really great place to find help. The other place I would mention is our email. So you may have emailed us in the past. That's where Amy will respond to all of your emails. She monitors that email box all the time, and we definitely encourage you to reach out to us if you have any questions about specific features or workflows or getting set up, anything like that. We respond to each and every email within 1 to 2 business days, and most of the time actually a lot faster than that. So if you don't hear from us within 1 to 2 business days, there is a chance that maybe we didn't get your email. Perhaps it ended up in our spam folder or something like that, so feel free to send it again. But we absolutely do respond to each and every email that we receive. Okay, so let's jump into a little bit of the interface tour. And so let me just jump over here back to Homeschool Tracker. And when you first log in, you're presented with the main menu. So let me head back over here. My internet's a little bit slow this evening, so hopefully you can see my progress here. Let me just shut down this other screen that I have up. I apologize. It seems like my internet connection here in our office is having difficulty. Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. Okay, so let's just walk through the main menu here. So it's broken up into these different areas: schedules and planning, students, reports, manage lists, and your account. So in the schedules and planning area, this is where you'll find the agenda, which is basically your calendar or your list of items that need to be done. This is where you'll find lesson plans, as well as the shared lesson plan library. In the student section, this is anything related to students. So the list of students, the grade levels that they might be in. This is where you can see a grading overview of each student. Um, Additionally, the lesson plans and presets pages here, which we'll talk about a little bit later, as well as the transcript supplemental page. And this is where you can add additional information to a student's transcript. The center section here are all your different reports. And there's actually more reports available than just this, but these are the ones that I have enabled on this account. And each one of these will generate a PDF report that you can save, print, or email. So everything from attendance reports to the daily task list, report cards, transcripts, lots of different options there. The manage list section over here, this is what I refer to more as kind of a maintenance area of the program. So each one of these lists that you see here, so like the activities list or the course list or your library, this is a place where you would enter information that would be referenced within an assignment. So, for example, in the library, that's where you add books and resources that you would then attach to an assignment on your agenda. And so that's why I refer to it more as a maintenance area, because that's where a lot of the those specific items like library items or chore names or um, subjects and courses, that's where those all live. And it's important that you know how to use those areas, and we'll cover them here tonight. But it is more of a maintenance area, and it's not something you necessarily are in all the time. And then the your account section here, and this is where the program options are, where you can edit your school profile, change your subscription plan, that sort of thing. Okay, so let's jump into, let me just close this real quick, subjects and courses. So when you're initially setting up Homeschool Tracker, it's important to understand the difference between subjects and courses, because how they're set up in Homeschool Tracker will make a difference for you, especially when you are generating reports like a transcript, for example. So we view subjects as broad areas of study, things like math, language arts, history, or science. When you first create a Homeschool Tracker account, it has those four basic subjects created for you. And you can always add more or change the names, whatever you like. Courses, however, those are specific areas of study within a subject. For example, Algebra 2 would be the name of a course within the subject of math. Composition 1 might be the name of a course, and that would belong to the subject language arts. Physical Science 1 would be the name of a course that would belong to the subject science. So you can see course names are a very specific area of study. They could be things like freshman algebra, for example. Um, it's much more descriptive as to what the course is, and you can think of it like a class. So if you're taking, pre-algebra, that's the name of your class, or in this case, the name of the course, and it's part of the subject of math. So let's take a look at what that looks like here within Homeschool Tracker. So first, I'm going to just jump over to the subjects screen. As you can see, I have those four basic subjects here: history, language arts, math, and science. And there's not really a lot of other information here because, as I mentioned, these are essentially just basic areas of study. So if I open one of these, you'll see I can choose if it's a core or elective. I can see what courses I have that are associated with that subject, and I can make it active or inactive. If I wanted to create a new subject, I would simply click on action and then choose add, and then I could create a subject there. But again, not a whole lot of options here because, again, a subject is really just a container essentially for courses. And it's important to think about the number of subjects and courses you may have. So the typical homeschool tracker account might have anywhere from, say, 4 to 10 subjects, but you might have literally hundreds of courses over the course of your homeschool career. So if you're finding that you're having many, many subjects, you might want to make sure you understand the differences between subjects and courses so that you can organize things a little bit better. So let's jump over to courses to see what those look like. And so you can see here, I have a number of different courses. And already there's a lot more information here. So you can see I have the course name, Ancient History 1. That belongs to the subject of history. I can see if it's worth a specific number of credit units, how those are calculated, what kind of grading scale it's using, etc. And so if I open that up again, I can see all of those fields available here. So I can customize this course based off of a number of different options. If I want to create a new course, I'll just simply click on action and choose add. Let's go ahead and create a new course. We'll call it Reading 1. And the name of the subject that Reading 1 would be in, so this would be language arts in my case. So I'll just go ahead and type in language arts. I'm going to stop right there because, as you may have noticed, as I was typing, language arts popped up here, and I can select that. And so this is essentially, this is what we call a smart entry field. And so what it's doing actually is, as I'm typing, it's searching that subject list that we looked at previously for anything that matches the characters that I'm typing. So as I'm typing language arts, that pops up. So a really handy way, especially as your lists start to get really long, really handy way to kind of filter and quickly find the item you're looking for. Additionally, if you don't know the name of the item you're looking for, you could just enter in a blank space. So just hit the space bar and you'll see all of the items on that particular list. And then I can just go ahead and click on the one that I want. Okay, so I'm not going to necessarily go over all of these different options here. They're a little bit more advanced, but definitely use that help guide if you have any questions about anything that you see here, or feel free to send us an email. So I'll go ahead and save this. And it says added one new item, click refresh to view. So I'll go ahead and reload. And you can see now I have my course Reading 1, which is part of the subject language arts. So there you go. That is really all there is to the difference between subjects and courses. Now, there's a few things that I like to remind folks, and the first thing is I would not recommend using the exact same name for both a subject and a course. So, for example, I wouldn't want necessarily have a course named language arts and a subject named language arts, because that would just get kind of confusing. So you definitely want the name of the course to be more specific than the name of the subject. And additionally, when you see a slash between the name of a subject and course, that just shows you the designation. So this makes a little bit more sense if you see it. If I just jump over to the calendar view real quick, and I'll just go ahead and add a new assignment. And if I go in here to the subject and course, if I hit the space bar, I can see a list. And you'll notice that I have history, and then I have history / ancient history 1. So if I were to select history here, I would be selecting just the subject. But if I select history / ancient history 1, then I'm selecting the course ancient history 1, which belongs to the subject history. So that's just a quick way that you can see not only the name of the course, but also the name of the subject. And that's what that slash indicates. Okay. So let's jump into assignments, which again is what I refer to as really the heart of all your record keeping within Homeschool Tracker. And assignments are really those schoolwork tasks that we give our students to complete, anything that you want to keep track of over time. There's also chores and appointments within Homeschool Tracker, but assignments are a little bit different because it's something that you want to maybe give a grade to. It's something that you might want to mark complete when it's finished. And all of those things together. Make it something that we can track over time. And so let's take a look at how assignments are created and what they can do. So right here, you've got assignments right here in the middle. And assignments can come from a number of different places. They can be created individually or in a series, or they can come from a lesson plan. And we'll take a look at lesson plans a little bit later. But essentially, you can create a lesson plan, which is a series of items, and run it through a scheduler, which will then create assignments. And within the assignments, once you have all of that information within your assignment, and if you mark it complete, and perhaps give it a grade, a number of things can then be generated from all of those assignments over time. So things like report cards and transcripts can all be generated because of assignments. We can create auto attendance records because of assignments. We can generate reports like the daily task list and a number of other reports. It all comes back to assignments. So again, they are really the heart of all your record keeping within Homeschool Tracker. So let's take a look at a simple assignment entry form here. And we actually just saw this a moment ago when I was showing you the difference between subject and course. And basically, an assignment has three required fields. So it needs a student, it needs a subject course, and it needs a date. Doesn't really need much else, but there are a number of optional fields that you'll probably take advantage of. So things like activity, which could be like lesson, quiz, test, things like that. Resource, which would be the name of a resource within your library, like a book. PLC, which stands for page, lesson, chapter. This is where you could put things like lesson one, chapter two, that sort of thing. You have full text editing capabilities within the directions field where you can create lots of information there. You can give your assignment a start and end time. You can track the points possible and the points earned for the assignment, as well as the time spent on the assignment. You can choose whether or not it should be able to be rescheduled. And then you can mark it complete by either a teacher or a student. And so when you do mark an assignment as complete by a teacher, a number of things happen. And again, this is kind of goes back to that previous diagram I showed you. Attendance can be recorded if you have auto attendance turned on. Grades will then be generated if you're grading that assignment. Time spent will be calculated if that's important to you. And through all of that, all of these other reports can be generated. So really, it's the assignment and the amount of information you put into the assignment, as well as marking it complete and perhaps giving it a grade that really bring Homeschool Tracker to life and give it the power that it has. Because over the course of a quarter or a semester or the entire year, you may have hundreds or thousands of assignments. And if you're keeping track of these by marking them complete and giving them grades, at the end of the year, it's as simple as clicking one button to then generate a transcript of all of those assignments basically calculated together to give you a final grade for that specific course or that subject. So it all goes back to assignments and keeping good records there. Okay, so let's do a little bit of a demo on assignments. What we'll do is we'll create single and multiple assignments. We'll add grades to them and mark them complete. And we'll do that both from the calendar view as well as the list view. So let me jump back over here. And we're already here in the calendar view, which is found right here on the schedules and planning section of the menu. So I'll go ahead and start here. And let's go ahead and just create a single assignment to show you what that looks like. So I'll click on add and choose assignment single. And first thing I'll do is I'll choose a student. So in this case, I'll choose Campbell, my daughter, and then a subject course. And again, this is a smart entry field. So I can just hit the space bar and see a list of all of my courses. And I'll choose Ancient History 1. Activity, again, this is another smart entry field. And remember, smart entry fields pull from those lists in the manage list section of the menu. So I'll go ahead and hit spacebar again, and I can choose any number of these activities that I have in that list, and I'll choose lesson in this case. And then resource, again, a smart entry field. This pulls from the library. I'll just go ahead and just pick one of these here. And then PLC. So PLC is page lesson chapter. So let's just go ahead and just say lesson one. Okay. And then we'll pick a date. So let's choose today, December 15th, and I can choose a start and end time as well. If I don't choose a start and end time, it will just end up in my all day assignments, and it's really up to me or my student when I want to complete that. And then let's go ahead and save this. Okay, so there you go. I have Campbell Ancient History from 8 to 9 a.m. on Tuesday, December 15th. Now, that's how we created one simple assignment. So let's say she went and completed that assignment. And so now I can go back in as a teacher and open that up, and I can just click on it once and quickly see a preview of what the assignment is. And I can click on more to go ahead and edit that. Well, let's go ahead and grade it. So let's say this was worth 10 points and she got 9. And I'll go ahead and click Teacher Complete. And when I did that, you'll notice that it calculated a grade over here of 90%. And then I'll hit save. And a few things happen. So you'll notice this color changed a little bit. That just shows me that it was marked complete. And then it also created this Campbell present up here, which is an attendance record. So I have automatic attendance enabled on this account. And what that means is whenever a completed assignment happens for a student on a particular day, the system just assumes that obviously if they completed something, then they were in school that day. So it can generate a attendance record. Now, those settings are all optional and you can tweak them a number of different ways. So definitely, if that's something that you'd like to enable, you can do that, or you can modify how it's handled. So that's how you would create a single assignment rather easily. And thinking about workflow here for a second, we have a number of users that do this each and every day. So perhaps you wake up in the morning or perhaps the night before, you can just go ahead and create all the single assignments for the next day, and you're off and running. And at the end of the day, you could go in and mark them all complete, give them grades perhaps, and hit save, and you're all set. And then you could do that again the next day. It also works in reverse. So, for example, for a lot of folks that perhaps are unschoolers or don't necessarily want to plan out all of this ahead of time, but would rather go about their day and then go back in at the end of the day and essentially log all of the work that they did. This works great for that as well, because you could essentially go in every night and create assignments for the work that you did do that day and give them grades and mark them complete at that time. And that's how a lot of unschoolers use Homeschool Tracker. It becomes more of simply a record keeping tool and less of a planning tool. But again, it's really just that. It's a tool, and you can use it a number of different ways. So it's all about finding the workflow and the method that works well for you. So now let's look at how I would create more than one assignment at a time. So if I go ahead and click Add and choose Assignment Multiple, I'm essentially presented with a wizard here. And these tabs at the top are different stages of the wizard that give me different options for creating multiple assignments at once. So first off, I can select multiple students. I can choose more than one student here. So I'll just choose Campbell again, but I could create the same assignment for more than one student right here. And I'll go ahead and choose another subject course. Let's do ancient history again. I'll do this a little bit faster this time just because it's pretty similar setup. Resource, I'll choose a book. And let's go ahead and pick a time for these. Well, again, we'll do 8 to 9. And let's say it's worth, again, 10 points. And then I can hit continue to day and date, which just takes me to the next tab here. And I can choose a number of different options. I can essentially create a number of assignments out into the future. I can set a start date. So let's go ahead and start tomorrow, the 16th. And I can choose, do I want to continue creating items until PLC pattern is exhausted, or do I want to continue creating items until a specific date? So I'm going to choose this option here, continue creating items until PLC pattern is exhausted, because I want to show you how that works. So I'll go ahead and choose continue to PLC. And so if you remember, PLC stands for page lesson chapter. So you could have the same page lesson chapter for all of these assignments that you're creating. Totally fine. But as you probably know, when you're creating assignments or assigning work, a lot of times the page lesson chapter would automatically increment over time. So for example, the first assignment might be chapter one, and the second assignment might be chapter two, and so on. So we can create a number of assignments at once and have that number, that PLC, increment automatically for us. So I'm going to choose one part auto increment, and I'm going to go ahead and call this, whoops, lesson. And I'll start with lesson one, and I'll end with lesson four. And I'll increment by one. Actually, I'm going to end with lesson three, increment by one. And if I click this little sample button here, I can see a little sample of what that's going to look like. So it's going to create lesson one, lesson two, lesson three, and then that's the end of the pattern because I'm only creating three of them. So I'll go ahead and click on continue to preview, and I can see a preview of the items that I'm about to create. So you can see I'm about to create 3 assignments from 9 to 10 a.m., lesson 1, 2, and 3. And I can go ahead and select all of these. Or if I wanted to make any changes, I could always click on these tabs here at the top and jump back to any point in here to make changes. In these auto increments, I could do a 2-part auto increment or a 3-part auto increment. So for example, if you wanted it to be like lesson 1, question 1, and then lesson 1, question 2, etc., and create a pattern like that, you could certainly do that as well. And a lot of folks do that, especially if you're creating lesson plans, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But let me go back to the preview, and I'll select all these and choose accept selected items. And by accepting them, it's going to go ahead and it's going to create them on my agenda here. So you can see I just created 3 assignments, and they automatically increment lesson 1, and then the next one is lesson 2, and the next one is lesson 3. So again, thinking about workflow, a lot of folks at the beginning of the week perhaps might go ahead and create all of their assignments for the week, all Sunday night perhaps, and you could do that for a week or 2 at a time, and then at the end of the week or at the end of every day, go in and mark those complete and give them grades. So again, another workflow for you to try out. I'm going to just jump over to the agenda list view, though, and show you what these look like in the list view. But actually, before I do that, let me just talk a little bit about the other features here in the calendar view. So up here at the top, these blue tabs here are filters. So if I click on one of these, I can see if I want to view all students or just specific students, I can change that here. I can choose the types of items that I'm viewing. So for example, if I didn't want to view attendance records, I could turn that off and hit OK, and that goes away. I can choose what completion status I want to view, and what subjects and courses I want to view. And these tools become really powerful, especially as your agenda starts to grow and you have a number of different items in here with multiple students. It could get a little crowded. And so these filters really help you pare that back so that you're only viewing the things that you really want to see. But let's go ahead and jump to the list view. And again, the agenda, calendar view, and list view, they essentially are displaying the same thing, but just in a different way. So here on the left, these are the filters versus those tabs on the top of the previous screen. And so I have a date range here. Again, I can choose what students I want to view or the types of items, etc. And so I'm viewing I'm viewing all items for this week. And so you'll see that I have Campbell's attendance record from today, that first assignment that we created, and I have the 3 assignments that we just created together here all at once. And I can scroll and see all these other columns here. So the nice thing about the list view is I can see a lot of information all at once without having to click into things. Additionally, I can modify more than one item at a time. So for example, if I wanted to change these 3 assignments all at once, I could select them all and choose Action, Multi-Edit. And I'm going to go ahead and change the time here from 9 to 8, and this one from 10 to 9. And I'll hit Save. And so I just edited all 3 of those assignments at once, since now they all start at 8 and end at 9. If I want to go ahead and mark them complete at the same time, I could do that as well. So I could select them all. I could go to Action and just choose Mark as Complete. So I'll go ahead and do that. And you'll see they're all now marked Teacher Complete, and it created attendance records for all of them. So again, the list view becomes really powerful to be able to do things in batch processes, basically across a number of different items at once. Additionally, there's a lot of different sorting and grouping tools here in the list view. So, for example, I can sort these columns in whichever direction I want. I can actually sort more than one column at a time by clicking on the top of them. And these arrows designate if I'm sorting ascending or descending. And I can just keep clicking until it goes away to essentially reset that sort. I can also group by specific columns. So one popular grouping might be by type. So if I take this type column and just drag it up here to the top, now I'll be grouping all of these assignments or all of these items by type. So I have all my assignments here, and then all my attendance records, and I can close these down, open them up, that sort of thing. If you have a lot of students, you might want to group by student, and then you could have each student be essentially a little tab that you can twirl down. And to clear that sort, you just click on this X here, and it goes back to normal. Additionally, you can search here right in the screen. So if I just searched for a lesson, it essentially pulls up all of the items that have lesson in them. And if I want to clear that search, I can just click on this green search filter here, and then that search will go away. So the list view has a lot of really powerful options. Additionally, I can enable or disable a number of different columns here. So if I go to options and choose columns, a whole bunch of different columns I can view here. So, and this is all customizable for you. So again, a lot of different options here in the list view, but it's really powerful, especially as your agenda really starts to grow, and you might need to make changes to more than one item at a time. Okay, so let's recap a little bit here. So we created single and multiple assignments. We added grades and we marked them complete. And we did it both from the calendar view and the list view. Okay, so let's jump into lesson plans because this is a really popular feature within Homeschool Tracker. So a lesson plan is essentially a sequence of items that have not yet been scheduled as assignments. So if you remember, assignments needed a student, a subject course, and a date. Now, a lesson plan item has all of the same things as an assignment, but it doesn't have a student or a date yet because essentially it's just a list of items that could then become assignments if you schedule them. So, this is great if you want to plan out everything in detail all at once, perhaps at the beginning of the year or at the beginning of a semester, or if you are working off of a predefined curriculum. And so, because you can essentially create this list of items um, and save it and use it over the course of the year, that also means that it's not tied to one specific student. So, it can be reused over and over again throughout your homeschooling career. So, for example, if you created a lesson plan for freshman biology and your student went through that course, then when your younger students get to freshman biology, you can just pull up that same lesson plan and schedule it for them, and you don't have to re enter any information. So it's really powerful if you are using it with multiple students. It's also great for a co-op because or a group because if you are working off of the same curriculum together, you can share lesson plans as well. So one member of your group can essentially create a lesson plan and then share it with everybody else in your group. And they do that through the shared lesson plan library. So lesson plans can be shared, they can be imported, and we have literally hundreds of lesson plans in the shared lesson plan library. And most of them are based off of popular off the shelf curriculum. So, if you purchased a curriculum off the shelf and you likely see that perhaps it even comes with a lesson plan, or you could translate, essentially the table of contents into a lesson plan. You'll see a number of those shared lesson plans that are based off of popular curriculum. So let's do a demo here because lesson plans really come to life when you see how they work. So we'll look at an example lesson plan. We'll create a very simple lesson plan, and then we'll import a lesson plan from the shared library. And then I'll show you how to schedule that lesson plan. And we'll do that a number of different ways, including using what are called presets. So let's go ahead and see an example lesson plan. So if I jump over to the lesson plan screen, the first time, if you haven't been here before, it'll give you this little pop-up that basically explains what lesson plans are. And again, if you haven't created a lesson plan yet, you won't necessarily have any in your lesson plan screen. I have a few here. So what I can do is just hit the space bar and see my lesson plans that I have. And let's just open this Abeka Arithmetic first grade plan so we can see what it looks like. And so, first of all, before I go any further, you might notice that this screen looks a lot like the agenda list view. And that's because, we're essentially using those same paradigms across a number of screens within Homeschool Tracker. So you have filters here on the left. You have the same sorting and grouping with the columns. You can search. The same add action and options buttons are here at the top. But and that's just so that the interface remains consistent across different screens. So here in this lesson plan, you'll see that we don't have dates. Instead, we have day numbers. And the day number really just tells you and the system what day in the sequence this particular item should occur. So day one, two, three, four, that doesn't necessarily correspond directly with Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Perhaps if you're just using this lesson plan once a week, then the first day that you use it, this is the lesson that you should use. The second day that you use it, which could be the next day or it could be 100 days later, this is the item that you should use. And so that's all based on how you schedule it, which we'll talk about later. But that's how these are organized. They're organized by day number. So, for example, you can see the first few days here. Day one, we're doing lesson one, then lesson two, three, four, all the way through day 11. We go through lesson 11. And then on day 12, we have an oral test that's worth 100 points. And also on day 12, there's another test, probably a written test, and that's also worth 100 points. Then kicking off with day 13, we go to lesson 13 and so on and so forth. There's another test here, and this goes for, and you can see it keeps scrolling here, it goes all the way for 171 days, so an entire school year essentially. And there are 202 items in this lesson plan. So you can see how this particular user created an entire year's worth of arithmetic lessons. And now all they have to do is essentially schedule these as they go for their student, and they don't have to do a lot of data entry along the way. So you can see how this can be pretty powerful. And because it's not assigned specifically to the student yet, that means you can use it for any number of students. So that's an example lesson plan. Let's go ahead and create a simple lesson plan so we can see how that works. So what I'll do is I'll just choose add, and I'll do add multiple. And first thing, you may notice that this wizard looks a lot like the same wizard we used when we added multiple assignments. And that's because it's essentially the same idea. Right now, because I was looking at that Abecco plan, it's going to pull that in if I wanted to add items to that. I can just remove that and give this new lesson plan a name. So I'll call it sample plan. And a subject course, we'll just choose ancient history again. And these will be lessons. And we'll choose a resource. And let's say they're all worth 10 points. So then we'll continue to day numbers. And let's say I want to start on day one and I want to increment by one. Okay. So I'll continue to PLC. And again, I can choose auto increments for PLC. So I'll choose a 1-part auto increment, and I'll do lesson 1 and ends with lesson 10, and we'll increment by 1. So before I hit preview, if I just kind of think through what I just did, basically, I am going to create a new lesson plan called sample plan in the course Ancient History 1. And I should be creating 10 items, and they should start with lesson 1 and end with lesson 10. So let's go ahead to preview and see if that's what comes out. Okay, so you can see I have 10 items here. It starts with lesson 1 and it goes through lesson 10, and they're all worth 10 points. So that's essentially what I wanted. So I'll go ahead and select these and choose accept selected items. And let me go ahead and load up that plan now. It's the sample plan. Great. So there you go. I have my simple lesson plan. It's 10 days, and there are 10 lessons. If I want to go ahead and add more to this, I certainly could. So let's go ahead and add a single item. And again, it's for ancient history. And this will be a test. So we'll just say it's a test, and it's worth 100 points. I'll go ahead and save it. And so there you go. This test is now here at the top because I did not specify a day number for it. So let me go ahead and change that. I'll make this day 11, and I'll hit save. So now I have days 1 through 10, our lessons 1 through 10. And then on day 11, we have a test worth 100 points. So you can see how quickly I was able to generate essentially 11 days worth of lessons. And I could continue this process to create an entire school year's worth of lessons. Um, we did recently do a training session just on lesson plans. And so if lesson plans are of interest to you, I highly recommend checking out the replay for that because we go over a number of different advanced strategies for creating lesson plans so that you don't have to necessarily repeat this same pattern over and over, but you can do things really quickly. And we cover a lot of those in that lesson plan training session. So definitely check that out. I forgot to share that link earlier, but if you go to homeschooltracker.com and then go to support training center, we have all of our past training sessions as well as our upcoming ones. And then this is the link here for that lesson planning training session. So definitely check that out if you're interested. Okay, great. So we created a simple lesson plan. So let's go ahead and import a lesson plan from the shared lesson plan library. So I'll jump over to shared lesson plans. And to view them, I'll just create a blank search and hit go. And this will essentially load in all of the shared lesson plans. And so, I'm scrolling here and you can see there are hundreds of lesson plans here in the shared lesson plan library. I'm going to go ahead and search for reading. And I'm going to choose this Usborne First Reading Level 1 plan. So here's the plan that was submitted by a user, and you can see it looks like it's 15 days, and it has a number of different resources associated with it, different PLC. And let's say this is great. This is what I want. So I'll go ahead and click on Prepare for Import, and it'll get this ready so that I can import it into my account. First things first, I need to create a name for it. So I'll call it Reading 1. And then I can choose which items I want to import. So in this case, I'll just select all of them. And one thing I could do right now is I could edit this. I could make changes to it because I just happen to notice that for subject course, it has language arts, which means that's just the subject language arts. And I want this to correspond to a specific course. So if I just choose action and do multi-edit, I can change that right now. And I'm going to choose that reading 1 course that we created earlier and hit save. Now I could certainly do this after I import it and just do a multi-edit at that point, but I might as well do it now since I'm here. And the other thing you may have noticed is under resource, it has this asterisk and it says new. And that basically means that these resources here, they exist in the lesson plan, but they don't exist in my account because I didn't have them in my library. But what it'll do on import is it'll create them for me. That's why it's saying that this is new, which is great. So I don't have to go ahead and track those down or enter in all that information. So I'll go ahead and choose accept selected items. And here we are back on the lesson plan screen. And I have my reading 1 lesson plan now. And these are the 15 items in that lesson plan that I just imported, including the resources and everything. So this is great. So I was able to essentially import a shared lesson plan that another user submitted. Okay, so now let's talk about scheduling the lesson plan. So, um, first thing, I'll just jump back here. And so, let's say I want to go ahead and start using this lesson plan for my student. I can very easily just select the items that I want to schedule. Let's say I want to schedule the first 5 days of this lesson plan. And I'll just choose Action, Scheduler. And I can choose which students I want this to apply to. I can have it, for more than one at a time. In this case, I'll choose Campbell and I'll just choose continue today and date. And then I can select when I want it to start. Do I want it to happen every day or just certain days of the week, that sort of thing. I'm going to have it start next week, the 21st. And I'm going to continue. Actually, I'll continue until all selected items in the lesson plan are used. And if you remember, I selected 5. So it should create 1 on each day. And I'll go back to preview. And these are the items I'm about to create. So I'll select them and choose accept selected items. Okay, great. So now if I jump over to my agenda and go to next week, we'll see that Campbell has reading 1 assigned. And you'll notice that it put it up here in all day because I forgot to enter a time for it, which is totally fine. But you can see that here's the first lesson, the second lesson, third, and so on. So um, I just easily created 5 days worth of assignments from the lesson plan. And so, again, thinking about workflow, if you had all of your lesson plans for your courses already in the system, you could essentially go in every Sunday night, select the items you want to schedule, hit a couple buttons, and basically generate your agenda for the coming week or the coming 2 weeks rather quickly. But I'm going to show you another trick for scheduling, a more powerful way to schedule, and that's using what we call lesson plans and presets. So if I jump to that screen here, we will load up the lesson plans and presets page, which takes a little bit longer because essentially it's pulling in all of the lesson plans for that particular student. So I'm going to choose Campbell, and it's going to take all of the lesson plans that she's using and bring them into the system so that we can essentially assign all of them at once for her. So you'll notice these are all the lesson plans that she's currently using. I'm going to go ahead and choose Edit so that I can add in that Reading 1 plan. And here it is down here. I'll just select that. And then I'm going to jump over to Preset. So this is the preset screen, and immediately it looks a lot like the calendar view, except there are no options to switch the week or anything like that. But what you'll see here is I have essentially created preset times when I want specific courses to occur. So from 9 to 10 every day, I have Ancient History 1, and then spelling from 10 to 11. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, she's in first grade math, and then Tuesdays and Thursdays is grammar, and so on. So you can create preset times and then tell the scheduler to use those preset times when you're scheduling assignments so that you don't have to remember what time you want something to occur. So let me go ahead and add a preset, and I'm going to do it for that Reading 1 course that we just created. And I'll have it happen Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. Okay, then I'll hit save. So now I have a Reading 1 preset from 3 to 4 every day. So now if I jump to the scheduler here, and I mentioned that this is a bit of a more powerful scheduler than what we just looked at. That's because I can essentially select any number of lesson plans and schedule them all at the same time. So here's Campbell, and I have all of her plans selected. Let's just continue to day and date. And so now when I'm doing this, instead of choosing, what frequency I want, I'm just going to choose preset. And by selecting preset, the scheduler is going to look at each one of those lesson plans, and it's going to say, okay, what course does this item belong to? Let's match it up with the preset that we just designated for Campbell. And I'll choose a start date. I'm going to choose, since we just scheduled things for next week, I'll choose the 28th. And I'll continue until the 1st. So I'm going to schedule an entire week all at once. I'll continue to preview now. And here we go. So looks like we have 49 items that are about to be scheduled. And you can see, I have Ancient History 1 on Monday from 9 to 10, then spelling from 10 to 11, arithmetic from 11 to 12. And let's see if we can find that reading assignment. So here's reading from 3 to 4. And then if we go to Tuesday, here's the next reading assignment, again from 3 to 4. So you can see how we have very specific times for everything. And we're generating 49 assignments all at once. So let me go ahead and select all of these and choose Accept Selected Items. And what it's going to do is it's going to take these 49 items and it's going to create them in my agenda. So this is really where those lesson plan items become assignments. When you go ahead and schedule them, it's assigning them a date and time and a student. So in this case, Campbell, and all of those dates and times that we just looked at. So again, there we go. So now if I jump over to the calendar again, and I go forward a few weeks here we go. You can see I just scheduled her entire week, a week's worth of assignments with just a few clicks. So Again, 9 to 10 is ancient history one, then spelling, arithmetic, physical science, and then reading. And you'll notice if I click on these, so each one of these is a little bit different because it's essentially going down that lesson plan list, all of those items sequentially, and it's assigning them based off of that day number that we looked at. So, thinking about workflow, if you were to create lesson plans for all of your courses for your students, and then every Sunday night or whatever you want, go into the scheduler, and if you had created presets for all of those items, literally with a few clicks, you can generate an entire week or an entire week's worth of assignments. Excuse me, um, really quickly. So this is probably maybe the most advanced workflow, but definitely like power users of Homeschool Tracker are using this workflow because they know, if I'm really on top of things ahead of time, I can make my day-to-day usage of Homeschool Tracker really smooth. And so again, if you would generate all this, and then at the end of every night, you could go in here, mark things complete, or at the end of every week, however you want to do it, and create or add grades. It becomes really, really efficient, essentially. Okay, great. So let's see. So we showed you an example lesson plan. We created a simple one. We imported one from the shared lesson plan library, and then we scheduled lesson plans on basically the kind of the simple way where you just select items on the lesson plan and hit schedule. And then we also did it a more advanced way using presets and the advanced scheduling tool. Great. Okay, so reports. Reports are created as PDFs, and you can print these, save them, or email them. And the daily task list, this is a great report to use on a day-to-day basis, and I'll show you how to do that. You can also create transcripts and report cards. I won't go too much into that, but we will probably have a training session just on transcripts and report cards, perhaps after the new year. But just know that you can generate a transcript or report card as long as you have at least one completed and graded assignment in a course. So let's take a look at the daily task list real quick. If I jump over to the reports section under daily task list, I can create a report. So I can choose my student, in this case Campbell, which subject course I want to include, and then a date range. So let's go to that week that we just scheduled, the 28th through the 1st. And I have a number of different options here of what I want to include. I won't necessarily go through all of these, but you can kind of see for yourself here. I'm just gonna include incomplete assignments, meaning assignments that haven't been done yet. And then I'll click on generate report. And then the report's now ready. I can hit pick up report, and it just downloaded the PDF to my downloads folder. Go ahead and open that. And let me just zoom in here for you. And so this is the daily task list. And so this is a great thing. Like if you created this every day or every week, you could essentially print it out, put it up on a bulletin board or attach it to a clipboard or however you want to do it. And it essentially takes all of those items on her agenda and lays them out here with all of the information that she needs. So including like we put a little checkbox here so you or your student can kind of check off things as they go. So you can see it's Monday here, 9 to 10, ancient history. Here's that reading assignment. And then it goes into Tuesday, Wednesday, and the rest of the week, essentially. So again, the daily task list is a really powerful tool that a lot of folks use on a daily basis. Totally up to you if you want to print things out like a lot of folks do. The daily task list works great for that. Additionally, if you don't want to print, you could have your student log in to their own account and see their tasks right in the same interface that you do. And they can essentially mark things complete right there as well, which would prevent you from having to print out a lot of reports and that sort of thing. Okay, great. So, kind of getting to the end here, thinking about workflows, and I talked a little about these along the way, but probably the most simple workflow that a lot of folks do is they can create and complete single assignments on a daily basis. So, as we showed you, you could essentially go in every morning or the night before, create the assignments for that day, and then even print out a daily task list for you and your student. And at the end of the day, go ahead in and mark those complete and give them grades. You could also do that in reverse. So if you are more of an unschooler, or don't necessarily want to plan out your day that way, you could go about your day, see kind of how far you got or how far you didn't get. Doesn't really matter. And at the end of the day, go ahead and log all of the work that you completed and break it up into assignments at that point. You can do that both by creating single assignments or multiple assignments at once. And then the more advanced workflow, and you could go all the way to the point where I did, where I had a lesson plan for every course, or you could do some courses have lesson plans, some don't. But essentially, you could create lesson plans and then schedule your students 1 week or 2 weeks at a time using the scheduling tool. And I would recommend only doing 1 or 2 weeks at a time. It can be pretty tempting to essentially schedule the entire lesson plan all at once and basically schedule your whole year. But uh, that tends to limit your flexibility because then you may have to do a lot more rescheduling. And so you can certainly easily reschedule things, and we can talk about that, or I can point you to resources on that. But it's much easier to reschedule, for example, 1 or 2 weeks worth of assignments versus rescheduling an entire year. So you saw for Campbell's week there, she had 49 assignments in that week. It's pretty easy to move 49 assignments, by one day or by a week if we need to. But imagine moving thousands of assignments or tens of thousands of assignments by one day or an entire week. It just becomes a little bit more of a hassle. So I definitely recommend only scheduling 1 or 2 weeks at a time. Okay, so let's jump into questions. Let's see. Let's take a look here and see if any questions have come in, and feel free to submit questions. Happy to stay on as long as we need to answer all of them for you. So somebody asked here, says anonymous viewer, for assignments, can you have students tagged in a particular group? So in the student field, you can select the group name, thus assigning the assignment to all students in the group. So there's no way currently to group students, so that they can all get the same assignments. That's a great idea though, and something that we hadn't necessarily run into much before. Um, I could see that working well for like a large school or a large co-op account or something like that. One thing you can do is you could essentially create the assignments for just one student, and then you can copy them to a number of students all at once. So let me just show you how that works real quick. So let's just jump to the list view here, and I'll just select this assignment, for example. I can just choose action, and then excuse me, duplicate. Wait, yeah, duplicate. And I can choose here then, which students I want to duplicate it to. So if I had a number of students here, I could just click on those students and then hit save, and it would basically copy that same assignment or multiple assignments if I had selected more than one to all of those other students. I can also do that, if I'm creating more than one assignment at a time by doing the assignment multiple. All of your students would be listed here, and you could select all of them there. So that's definitely probably the easiest way to do that for multiple students at once. The other way, if you had those in a lesson plan, for example, you can schedule items in a lesson plan to more than one student at a time. So you may have noticed, it looks a lot like this actually, where the students are here. You can choose which students you want to schedule them for all at once. And so you can certainly, create your lesson plan once and then schedule them for 5, 10, 20 students perhaps, all at the same time. So really limiting the amount of work that you have to do. But we don't have a way to, just click once essentially and automatically select a certain group of students. But that's definitely a great suggestion, something that we would consider doing perhaps in the future. Okay, great. Any other questions out there? Feel free to uh, go ahead and ask those. Happy to stay on as long as we need to answer any questions you may have. Don't see any questions coming in. One question that we do get a lot is about rescheduling. So, if you do have another question, feel free to submit it. But in the meantime, I'll show you real quick how to reschedule items. So let's jump over to the calendar view. So probably the easiest way to reschedule something from the calendar view is simply to click and drag, right? So if I wanted to take this item and just move it to Tuesday, boom, I could certainly do that. That is fine if you're just moving one thing or something like that. But if you um, want to move an entire day's worth of assignments or an entire week's worth, you're going to want to do that from the list view. So if I jump back to the list view, and let's just go to that week that we had for Campbell, where we had all of those items. I'll just select that here. Great. So let's say that Campbell was sick on Monday the 28th. And we just basically want to take that entire week and move it forward a day. I can simply select all of the items for that week and just choose Action, Reschedule. And what I'll do is I'll just change the start date. So rather than start on the 28th, I'll have it start on the 29th. And then I'll continue to preview. And so this preview basically shows me the existing date and then the new date. So all these Monday items will now be on Tuesday, Tuesday will be on Wednesday, etc. So I'll hit select all and then choose accept selected items. And then let me just jump back to the calendar view because it's probably easier to see there. And so now, because she was sick on Monday, her Monday is now clear, and we just bumped everything forward a day. If I move forward to the next week, you'll see that it runs over into the following week as well. So really easily, I just moved all of those assignments forward a day. Let's say she was sick on Tuesday as well, but rather than move everything forward a day because we don't want to fall too far behind, I'm essentially going to just take her Tuesday work and double it up on Wednesday so that we can get caught up. So if I go back to the list view, I can essentially select just, let's see, just the Tuesday items. So just these items here on the 29th and choose Action, Reschedule. And instead of them starting on the 29th, I'm going to move them all to the 30th and continue to preview. And so now you'll see these Tuesday items become Wednesday. And then these green ones here at the bottom, they basically say existing item, just kind of showing that there's conflicts because she has items already on Wednesday. But I know that because I essentially want to double up the work. So I can select these and choose accept selected items. And so now if I go to the calendar view, you'll see her Wednesday is really busy, but Tuesday is now clear. So those are probably the two most popular use cases of rescheduling, where you want to move everything forward by a day or any number of days, really, or you want to just move one day or a few days forward and essentially double up on the work. But again, you can see why we do recommend only scheduling a week or two at a time. It's relatively easy to move those 49 items at once, but if I needed to select thousands of items for an entire school year, it could be a little bit more cumbersome. Homeschool Tracker will absolutely do it, but I know that it does make it a little less flexible. It's much easier to just move a few days at a time. Okay, I see another question. Scott Taylor asks, when you have more than one teacher with the ability to log in, will they have their own students listed, or will they see all the students from the other teachers as well? Okay, so Scott, I think my wife Amy shared the questions you were asking via email earlier. So if I understand correctly, you have a large co-op and that you're hoping to use Homeschool Tracker with. So just to give a little bit of context to this question. So will they see all the students from other teachers as well? So yes, the way the Homeschool Tracker is set up, it is definitely was built with smaller groups of students in mind. So if you log in as a teacher, you will have the ability to see all of the students in the system. So by default, a regular Homeschool Tracker account has a maximum of 20 students. We can absolutely add more, and we can quote custom pricing for that. But if you log in as the administrator or as a teacher, you will have access to all of the students. We have no way to segment students. And so I'm presuming the previous question was also yours about grouping students together. That's definitely something we don't have the ability to do now. But that doesn't mean that that's how you would necessarily have to work. So, the beauty I think of Homeschool Tracker is, it is a very open platform, and so it's really, about finding the most um, effective solution to your specific uh, circumstance, Scott. So that's something that we could work on in terms of thinking about how you could essentially use a tool like Homeschool Tracker with, I think it was 100 students in your co-op, and however many teachers. You could essentially create multiple accounts, perhaps one account for every class or every grade level. And then the teachers would log into those and see just the students in that group or that cohort. That could be one way to do it. There's probably a few other ways that we could brainstorm to come up with a solution as well. So definitely, Scott, feel free to follow up, or we'll certainly follow up with you to try to brainstorm some ways that we could certainly add or have you use Homeschool Tracker within your group. I'm sure we could figure something out. But in addition, if we do see a lot of demand for these larger groups using one account together, then we can certainly add those features in as well. Like you mentioned, the ability to group students or to limit the which students a specific teacher could view, that sort of thing. Great question, though, Scott, and definitely we'll follow up with you directly. Okay, any other questions coming in from out there? Okay, great. Well, just again, thank you guys so much for joining us. As I mentioned before, we are recording this. So what we'll do when the recording is ready is we'll send out an email to everybody that registered with a link to that recording. We'll also include a link to a survey. We'd just love to get your feedback on, was this session helpful or not? Are there other topics that you would hope that you would like for us to cover in the future? So definitely, if you have the time, we'd love to get your feedback. But again, feel free to email us at any time, support@homeschooltracker.com. We're more than happy to answer any and all questions you have. And so again, thank you so much for joining us, and have a great holiday. And we hope to see you again real soon. Thanks.